Hi guys, Jane Alden here once again, and I promise this is going to be the last time I talk about the proposed changes for the visa, the permanent residency visa here in Japan, at least until there's an official announcement so we can kind of compare what was proposed versus what's real. But I did want to make kind of like a final thoughts about it just to kind of sum up what I think, what I feel. Do I think it's fair? What's the future going to look like? And, do I think it's a good idea and stuff like that? Because I do want to make it clear, first of all, because I've received a lot of messages saying I'm lacking empathy. Like, I do feel sad for those who maybe were looking to apply for permanent residency within like the next year or so and were very, very close. It must suck that they thought they were going to get close and they were gonna possibly get it soon in the future. And these changes might seem unreachable for many. And it is kind of a weird feeling to say, like, achieving the national average income in Japan is an unreachable goal. Because if you went to live in another country, like if people came to America or people came to the UK, I don't think they would have to struggle too hard to find a job as long as they are qualified that will earn them that much money. And I think this is one of the things that is the problem at hand is, even though I do think personally, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna stress this, I'm sorry, I do think for your benefit and for Japan's benefit, making sure that you have a secure financial future should be necessary. Regardless of permanent residency visas, it would be quite irresponsible to let you live, because basically what this type of permanent residency is a retirement visa, really. Because there are other ways to get the permanent residency visa, being married, and if that's the case, you have a family. And why might it be easier to get it if you're married? Is that because if you have children, that is benefiting the future of Japan in that way. Or if you're a high skilled professional and make a lot of money, you are obviously contributing a lot, not just in terms of money, but you're probably working in a field that is pushing Japan forwards. Now, what this type of permanent residency is basically like a retirement visa, because the assumption would be is that you are going to be in Japan. You could get married along the way, and that would help you out. So this is under the assumption that you would never get married, and you would just live your life in Japan. And if you do make under the average salary in Japan, it's not great for the country for a number of reasons. In terms of a financial drain or benefit, I talked that in a previous video. The assumption is that you might not have kids while you live here, so you are basically adding to the old people count when you get older, and you might not even be contributing enough money to pay for your own care, if that makes sense. It is a dark capitalist way of thinking about things, but unfortunately, even if I think that's wrong, I wish there was a way that nothing cost money and we all worked just as communities to help the world go round. Unfortunately, that is not the world that we live in. And I just want to put up one small point that I've been thinking about is, I know people have been talking about location-based average incomes, but I also think that doesn't work, because if, again, thinking of it as a retirement permanent residency visa, the permission to retire in Japan, is that if you went to, for example, live in Tottori, which is a much smaller prefecture in Japan, of course, the salary is going to be lower. Therefore, don't go live in Tottori. You technically don't need to be in Tottori. Actually, to be honest, the only reason why most, foreigners, and I'm going to say like you or me, because those are the people watching these videos because it's in English, and you probably found me through those kind of channels, is you would only be there unless you're forced to be there as a single person. I don't think anyone's choosing to go live in, let's say, Akita, by choice, unless they're married with a family there. It's just one of those things. I think the only reason a lot of foreigners live in these areas in the English teaching space is because they've been put there from their first company and they've tried to find another company that's close by. In that case, the salary is much smaller. But unfortunately, once you retire, your cost to the country doesn't change. And if anything, that's probably a bigger burden on your local area because you would just be adding to that very aging population at that time, unless you move. So my only advice really is that you should move to a city. And that, I know that sounds so boring and harsh, but I think that just makes sense in terms of you wanting to get this visa. But yeah, so it's, I think the visa changes are sudden, and the language, because I think was it last year? I don't even think it was a whole year ago when they proposed being stricter about tax payments and stuff like that, which is very fair, by the way. And the Japanese language requirements, again, it all comes down to being a burden to the country, because even though some people really don't like to hear this, if you live in Japan for 10, 15, 20 years and you can't communicate in the language, you are putting pressure and a burden on every single person that you communicate that doesn't speak your language in return. It would be weird because if you go to the hospital, if you deal with the police, if you want to buy something, you are willing on them understanding you, not you understanding and communicating with them. And if something goes wrong, you would probably be upset with them. And I know some of you might say, like, no, I would take responsibility. Like, you would see the stories that exist on YouTube or on Reddit who blame everybody but themselves. So I think these changes to the visa are really trying to make it clear that we want you to stay in Japan as long as you are providing enough in your lifetime. Because unless you plan to live in Japan forever, there's not necessarily much reason to get permanent residency. You might decide to leave Japan at some point after getting it, depending on what happens in your life. But the assumption of when you're applying for it is that you're going to be here long term. So if you're maybe 40 years old right now, you've been in Japan for 10 years, but you're still on a salary of 3 to 3.5 million yen. First of all, why? Like, in 10 years, why haven't you decided to get something better? And it's not good enough to say the anime industry doesn't pay enough, English teaching doesn't pay enough. Yeah, we know it doesn't pay enough. You knew that when you started 10 years ago. Therefore, you should have found something else. And I think sometimes, I know some people's dream might be to live in Japan, or someone's dream might be to work for the anime industry, or someone's dream might be to work in games, QA or something in Japan. But just because it's your dream doesn't mean the place in which your dream exists has to accommodate to you or do anything for you. In fact, the fact that somebody can come here and be a games designer, or just come here to teach English just on the back of wanting to come here and teaching English. I think that Japan is actually very friendly in that case. And nobody's kicking foreigners out. You can still come here in the same way that you could before, unless you wanted to come and make a business, in which obviously that visa changed a lot. But if you are wanting to live in Japan, you can still live here. You can still roll over your visa until your job doesn't exist anymore and you can't find another one, or you're not willing to work in an industry that provides you a visa. No one's kicking you out. However, they also, it's a case of give and take. You want to live in Japan. Japan didn't ask you to come and live in Japan. There are people that they are trying to get to come into live in Japan for, and I would say, to be honest with you, the people who come here to do farming or just people to come work in factories, I would say they much more deserve to receive permanent residency than an English teacher or somebody who works in the anime industry. However, those jobs are also very labor based and they rely on young people coming to work. If you come as a 25-year-old farmer, I'm sure it would benefit Japan greatly if you left at 45 and new 25-year-old farmers came. Because at the moment, there's not necessarily a shortage of those people. Even if a lot of people are saying, oh, the number of foreigners is going to drastically drop. It's not. Trust me, it's not. I've been living here for 13 years. I engage with a lot of people on LinkedIn and on YouTube and in real life. And trust me, Japan is not going to run out of foreigners anytime soon. So Japan doesn't owe you anything. And aside from the permanent residency discussion, that idea of somebody not owing you something should be what you feel about everything. A company that you work for doesn't owe you a promotion. You've got to work for that promotion. A friend doesn't owe you anything. You've got to be doing things together, helping each other out. A country doesn't owe you residency. You should give reasons for them to let you have it. And I know a lot of people are going to say that is, licking Japan's boots, or it's too cold, or, I've got permanent residency where I can say whatever I want. I believe in all different kinds of things, that situation applying. If I decided to go back to England tomorrow, it would be incredibly difficult because England's system of even just allowing my wife to have a spousal visa is way stricter, especially coming from Japan, where the yen is very weak. So I know the visa changes seem harsh, they seem unattainable, but if you believe they're unattainable, they are going to be unattainable. If you start thinking, okay, now this is my chance to get a better job, to move into a different career path. Let's see if I can apply to some different jobs in different industries. Okay, I'm going to get that N2 or get that M1. I'm going to get my BJT. I'm going to network more to find better jobs. You can do it. But it all depends on you getting it done. There's no excuse for working 15 years in the English teaching industry without many pay rises. If anything, that's very lazy, even if you believe the job is difficult. And come at me all you want, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. Again, I already have permanent residency. If they decide one day that they're going to change the rules for my residency as well, I'm just going to have to adjust to make sure that I meet any new criteria, just as if I would do anything else. But yeah, thank you for watching this series. I'm going to start talking about different stuff because I'm sure you're probably bored to death. And thank you very much to like the 100 people who subscribed off of these videos, the almost 10,000 views that we've got, because this is going to sound stupid and this might sound like a reason why I'm doing the videos. And to be honest, it is. You've kind of revitalized my interest in YouTube because I was kind of like not sure if I should make videos, but people are listening. Even if you disagree, I hope you can be respectful. And to the people who called me entitled in the comments, please use a dictionary. I'm literally the opposite of entitled. Entitled would mean I expect something to be given to me, not work for it. So if you're going to insult me, at least use words that are true, like fat or ginger or white pig or anything like that. But yeah, thank you all for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.